Hello everyone, Adachi here. Today we're taking a look at Roku because I think he is one of the best characters available to all players, especially new ones. He is a tank, and by tank I mean a wall. Incredibly slow but extremely resilient, he can completely ignore boss mechanics and can even be used to AFK them as well. Starting with his skills, his basic attack is a slow 3-hit combo, and when an enemy is hit, they will essentially be taunted, prioritizing Roku over other party members. The debuff lasts 20 seconds, which is an incredibly generous timer, as this means you only need to hit an enemy every so often. And when I say slow, I mean incredibly slow. So slow it's worthless to even care about how high the modifier is on his last hit. Same as far as break is concerned, his attacks are way too slow for this to add up, except his secondary. Going into that, it is a charging attack with 3 stages, doing more spins based on how long you charge the attack for. No charge, you will do 2 spins, 1 charge, 4 spins, and a full charge does 5 spins and a finishing blow. Each hit will taunt as well as generate 1 stack of rage. Rage is the meter seen on the left of Roku. This caps at 30 stacks, and each individual stack will boost defense by 5%. Rage stacks are also gained whenever Roku is hit. Speaking of getting hit, we can get into his strategy skill. It's basically a guard. By holding the button, Roku will take reduced damage, reducing damage by 70% and consuming stamina. This only consumes stamina when hit, and if hit with no stamina will give no damage reduction. Getting hit in this stance will also fully charge your secondary. The charge when hit can be goofy sometimes though. I found not moving at all while doing this is the best way of actually getting to utilize your charge secondary. Otherwise Roku will just do a 0 charge. Last is his ult and chain skill. His ult requires a level 3 tension and does an AoE attack while consuming all rage stacks, boosting damage for each stack consumed. I'm going to skip ahead and bring up his second passive now, which when invested into will further boost this rage scaling damage for his ult. If read correctly, the rage scaling should multiply the actual ult damage instead of the base, which is pretty nuts. But going over all this, his ult is absolute garbage. First, it requires tension 3, which is already rough to get to, let alone waste on someone you aren't going to be building for damage. It eats his rage stacks, which help mitigate a lot of damage. This all leads to low damage and enormous investment. I won't even test building him for full damage to see what this ult does, as I think his job is already done much better by pretty much any DPS, especially Iroha. And his chain skill is a chain skill which does apply taunts, which is just a nice cozy benefit. Going into his passives, his first one will give him a periodic heal every 5 seconds, scaling off both his max HP and rage stacks, increasing how much this heal scales with each level put into it. This is a decent passive and can situationally be useful as we go into the future and what future AFK comps might need. And his second passive we already went into. I think it's bad and should pretty much just be ignored. With that said, Saigo definitely wants your points invested into survival instincts, giving more HP, defense, and stamina. All very beneficial as he is a tank, and stamina lets him more easily dodge, counter, and utilize his strategy. For his gear, you will ideally want damage cut rate, defense, or max HP in that order. I also might get into set effects as we get further into the future, but most players won't have enough gear with good substats and matching sets. For Roku, though, you ideally want Fortress for even more scaled damage reduction, followed by Defender for max HP. Going over his dupes, his first one will give his team a boost in heals received for 15 seconds when he uses his ult. The buff will scale based off how many rage stacks were consumed, and on that familiar tune, pretty much anything revolving around his ult is garbage, so this is negligible. At 3 dupes, his strategy skill will have its stamina cost, which is nice, and a word I use a lot for these is comfy, but not game-changing. At max dupes, Roku will taunt all enemies when his teammates' HP go to half or below. It does say all other party members, meaning both would have to hit 50% or below. This hopefully shouldn't really come up ever, but can be potentially nice for AFK teams. Overall, his dupes are underwhelming, which I think is a healthy mentality for games with dupes. Because Roku is a tank, much like a support, I think he fits well onto any team, paired best with a healer or support of some kind, and a DPS to actually put out some damage. I like Sudoku and Kazuki for good break, good supporting capabilities, as well as a flexible DPS or healer on Semba if I need it. Of course, these can be swapped for other options like Iroha and Minami or Koishi. Looking at tension cards, of course, I'll always live and die by full party and strike zone. We still want our DPS to put out good damage. Ferocity always mentioned as a good flex pick if you need the revive. For cards more specifically pertaining to Roku, I think some neat ones are Small Blessing, which will give you a slow regen when you are hit. Theoretical Armor reduces damage taken, which will double if you have a card that can apply control. Coercion reduces all enemies' attack, and with the Kingship buff will boost your teams by the same amount. Ace Up One sleeve will buff defense when you are hit, and Toughness, which boosts defense and grants disorder. Another consideration is running Stimulation with another tension that heals, or a healer in general, just really boosting Roku's sustain and survivability. Last, I just wanted to bring up his chibi 2-star card, Quiet Heavy Tank, which can be neat to play with, but having to be at EX means it's really just a fun time card rather than a meta-defining one. Overall, I think Roku should be put on AI while you control a DPS. It can make a boss a bit more unpredictable, but will completely divert its attention, meaning a much easier time to play for yourself. If you want to control him though, it's really just about surviving and trying to apply some break while your DPS does all the work. Utilizing his strategy over his counter or dodge means you can stack rage up faster, mitigate damage, and apply more break. Your best means of achieving this is getting hit in strategy, then using a charge secondary. This applies the most break and racks up rage very quickly. If your HP starts to get low is when you want to start utilizing dodge and counter more while your healer catches you back up. Here you can see just how beefy he is when it comes to boss fights. With a healer, Roku just does not give a fuck what the boss is doing. And here I can show some footage of my first AFK run attempt. With zero optimization, I basically just paired him with 2 healers I had built. I can't give much insight here, but it's pretty crazy I can get a 3-minute diver clear full AFK. Basically, if you're having any form of skill issue in this game, go build Roku. When nobody else got your back, Roku does. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like, comment, subscribe, or don't. See ya.